Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Relic Arena. In this video it's going to be all about Newton and a Titanic based build where you send all of your tanks and assassins into the enemy backline and basically burst everyone down. Things can get pretty crazy. Shout out to Zeph for showing me this build, and well, I have really been enjoying playing this. Don't mind the link on screen. That was the person who was first in our lobby, as we will be switching to our POV shortly. And well, the early game here doesn't matter too much. I do get offered an Aztec Sunstone, which allows you to ignite enemy units. Basically a good tank item that reflects some of the damage. And that will be part of the build later, but the rest here isn't too important. I'm basically just trying to survive the early game as best I can. Gonna go for the Assassin, highest base attack with good hit points as well. And just kind of hope that, you know, I can get through the early game without too much trouble. But in this specific strat, I really like to prioritize shop level. Get to level shop 3, even level shop 4 for that extra slot, and specifically get access to those ultimate relics, because those are the ones that we're going to be targeting here. You want to get Titanic and you want to get it to level 3, as well as a bunch of other things that are going to be very, very useful for this build. Now, what about Newton? Well, Newton is a relatively simple leader. You basically select one of your heroes, and whenever they reach a certain threshold of relic damage, you will drop something on an opponent's head. That can be an apple, which does the least amount of damage, but as you upgrade Newton, you get some odds to drop something heavier, which will deal more damage. Something like a book at level 2 that deals 200 damage, or an anvil at level 4 that deals 400, or even an asteroid at a 5% chance at level 5 that would deal 10,000 damage if it happens to trigger. Now, the level 5 here isn't the most important. You kind of want to get to level 4 on Newton, but as I said before, I am mainly looking to level up the shop first and get to shop level 3 and start getting, you know, the chance to find the things that I need. Round 2 here, not great. I did roll a lot because I basically don't care about most of these relics. Aztec Sunstone, I somehow managed to get level 3 super early, which is extremely nice because I think this item is generally very contested, and it is an item that I like using a lot on my tanks, even outside of this specific build, because it can deal a lot. First passive that I'm going to go in for here is the 30% relic lifesteal. That will be very useful later on as we start getting more relics, and you will see that you can get a proper carry tank going with the correct build. So here again, this was a really bad round for me, round number 2. I don't really manage to find anything I want. So what I end up doing is selling my relic to be able to afford the shop level up, and basically make sure that I might be able to level up the shop again next round. I don't mind sacrificing some hit points here early on, drop down to 150 hit points, 120 hit points perhaps even by the time we get to mid-game, but ensure that I can get my hands on the relics that I want before anyone else. And in the current meta, that is not a bad strat to do sometimes. A lot of, you know, high-rated players and a lot of strategies currently revolve around shop level 2 and kind of staying there and farming all of those standard relics, getting them high level, perhaps getting juicies on them, and, you know, that is good enough. Ultimate relics, in a lot of scenarios, aren't necessarily, like, powerful enough, but some builds can shine, and especially when everybody else is going for standard relics, you know, they might contest each other, make it harder to, you know, find the comp that they want, and while you kind of get free reign on all of those ultimate relics. Here on the round number 3, I do decide to roll a little bit. I'm gonna say that round 2, round 3 here weren't clean at all from my end. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and I was flip-flopping between, do I want to try and stabilize to find relics, or do I want to just sack around and level up the shop or the leader? And to be honest, I should have done the latter. I should have just sacked around, because that's what I'm doing here anyway. I just spent an entire round rolling for relics, not even really knowing what I was looking for. I decided to lock the shop here because I was thinking about going for something like Celtic Axe, which can be very nice to get into the backline, and you can get some pretty crazy combos here on tanks if you get HP scaling. You can see here the Celtic Axe wielders sacrifices a portion of their health becoming unstoppable and leaping towards the furthest enemy in range. This can also deal the damage to targets that the caster takes. So that becomes very good once you get some HP scaling through something like guillotine or dog tags, which well, basically up your hit points as you manage to kill enemies throughout the game. And they are ultimate relics, so the earlier you get them, the earlier the scaling can begin. At this point, I am going to change from having that assassin up front to having the tank. It should be able to cast everything here without any problems. Sometimes early game tanks can struggle, even if some of the items are meant to go on them later on. Their mana pool just isn't high enough, or you don't have the sustain items like Viking Runestone or Devil's Bible to be able to cast everything. And then usually the easiest thing to do is to go for an assassin, which still has good tankiness and has a little bit more of a mana pool to be able to cast everything that you want. So we managed to get to shop level 3. You will notice that here I'm still on level 1 with my leader. And I mean, the thing here is this doesn't really matter too much right now because I'm sacking rounds, right? I'm trying to get to a high shop level, and doing that will likely cost me a bunch of rounds. So, leveling up Newton is all well and good and it will be useful later, but it's unlikely that I'm going to win rounds anyway, so why bother with that? And instead, let's try and get to those ultimate relics. We finally get there, and I do manage to find the Titanic right away. Now, what does Titanic do? Well, it summons the Titanic, and it surges towards a target area. This is going to be the furthest away unit within range of the caster, so within 900 range. And allies nearby the passing vessel gain damage delay for a short time. The thing that you're aiming for here is down with the ship, this super that unlocks at level 3, which is going to give you 600 bonus cast range, and all allies within 400 units of the caster will board the ship. And this is great because the units can't get attacked while they're in the ship. It delays basically the fight for a little bit, and it allows you to send all your tanks into the back line without having to worry too much about, upfront CC or some kind of tank on the front line that you can't get through really quickly. Already here we can see that we're doing quite well, and you will notice that my damage dealer, whilst you might think, maybe you want to have that on something like an assassin, is starting to become my tank. Viking Runestone here, by the way, I do manage to pick up, and this seatbelt just gives passive hit points, and that's something that I'm just kind of holding there as a filler item. I might get rid of it at some point because there are better HP scaling items in the game, like the dog tags I managed to find. So what do dog tags do? Well, they provide damage block from all sources, and you gain 10 permanent health when an enemy in 1200 radius dies. So when you get this early, you can really start scaling it a lot. And of course, as you level it up, you're going to be able to get even more and more hit points from it every time something dies, in the vicinity of the caster. So that's where the hit point scaling starts. Very nice to have this on the board. I probably should be swapping the seatbelt and the dog tags here because I think my tank has the highest chance of killing anything and of staying alive as well, because it's the only thing right now that actually has items at all. Viking Runestone, by the way, really important for this build. It was rather contested in this game. Only 8 available here, even, on round 7, which is still relatively early on, but extremely, extremely good. It blocks and it reflects 10% of the damage, and importantly, it gives you mana back every time you deal 350 damage. So this becomes useful because one of the other puzzle pieces that I'm going to want on this tank is going to be the Tesla radio, and that will be draining the mana of the caster continuously. It will be dealing damage in an AoE effect, but that's why you need that Viking Runestone to really be able to get back that mana and keep that Tesla radio going and going and going. But right now we're still searching for it. I haven't managed to find it. I am going to sell the seatbelt there mid-fight. I'm not sure if I'm mentioned that in the previous video, but the fights in this game are basically calculated at the start. So the outcome is already known, and then you're just looking at a replay of said result. So selling relics during the fight is not going to impact the outcome. However, it will impact the start of the round, money reduction or cost reduction on the leader and the shop. So you can kind of, be tricky here and sell relics that you might not need during the fight to be strong, or as strong as possible, And then at the start of next round, still get the benefit of that discount on your leader and shop level if it's something that you're really looking for. Starting to do a bit better now as, you know, some of those books are falling from the sky. Really, really close. But yeah, my caster here is not going to be strong enough. That Titanic has a really long cooldown. And essentially the job of this caster is just going to be to cast a whole bunch of relics with long CDs at the start and then die. That's all that it's going to be doing. And that's exactly the type of relics that we'll be looking for later on. But for now, you know, I'm trying to make sure that I actually can find some, you know, some of the relics that I want. Specifically, that Tesla radio is going to be very, very important. And sadly, I haven't been able to find it yet. I do find the dog tags here, level 3, and I decide to go for the death rattle, which makes it explode for 250 damage plus 30% of all damage taken as magic damage. This is very nice when you're sending something into the backline, where usually all of the squishy units are. So hopefully we'll be able to take down those carries. And yeah, we now have a carry tank, essentially, which is going to have Aztec Sunstone, Viking Runestone, ideally Tesla Radio, which is in the game, but I haven't been able to find it, and then Divine Diadem, which gives attacks and, importantly, relics a 23% chance to crit, and also gives lifesteal. So this is basically going to be our carry tank, sustaining, dealing that continuous AoE damage, and hopefully continuously proccing Newton's ability. And then we're going to have kind of a suicide high HP tank with something like Celtic Axe, Viking Vanguard to taunt enemies in the backline, and then the 2 scaling items here, Guillotine and Dog Tags. Again, here we're losing. You can see me going down to 106 hit points, but I feel like I'm starting to stabilize, and I wasn't too concerned just yet. We get our last and final hero here, which I'm going to make another tank, and well, we managed to get Titanic level 3. And this looks really, really insane, but this is the formation that you're gonna want to go for. You pack everything as tightly together as you can, and then you put a caster right behind those 3 frontline units, as that will allow all of them to board the ship and go into the enemy backline. And again, you don't care about this caster dying. It will cast Titanic. Then you can go for something like Oil Lamp, which will spawn a genie, which will remain on the battlefield even if the caster has died. And it also happens to stun enemies when it gets spawned. So those type of effects are really, really nice. Now, as I say that, my caster somehow gets yeeted into the back line, so it's still alive. But yeah, we're starting to do a bit better, and this looks like it could be a round win. Finally, we get it. Staying above 100 hit points and managing to start stabilizing the situation a little bit. Guillotine I haven't mentioned yet. This delivers a powerful strike, dealing damage based on the target's missing health, stunning them, and briefly disabling healing. Now, executing an enemy with this ability will give bonus permanent increased health regeneration and maximum mana. So it's another one of those scaling items, much like dog tags. And if you get this early, once again, and you manage to start stacking it, it can get out of control rapidly. Right now, it's not too crazy, but we can see in the later rounds that are coming that things will get rather insane. And finally, I managed to find my Tesla radio, only level 1, but hey, at the very least, we have it. And yeah, this is the real kind of crown piece of this comp. As it drains the caster's mana per second to deal 100 plus 2% of the enemy's max health as damage in an AoE effect. And yeah, that really starts to proc the Newton ability a lot. We have finally managed to get this to level 3, where the selected unit gains 500 bonus health. And hey, well, it's a tank, so that's pretty nice. And you can really start to see here that that Newton ability is going kind of crazy. Of course, my tank is doing great here, 3,500 damage, even keeps ticking a little bit there, but the Newton ability already up to 2k, and once we get that to level 4 and we have that chance to drop anvils, things will get, you know, even better. At this stage, I'm pretty happy with the 2 builds I've got going, and I can start thinking about maybe making another build here, which will just be a generic AoE, or as we call it, a circles build, because it basically uses all of the relics that have these big circular AoE stuns or damaging effects like Persian Cat, which stuns in an AoE effect, or something like the Orca Fossil, which channels a Whirlpool, which also deals a bunch of damage and kind of pulls people inwards. Both of those really, really nice. There's another fossil in the pool as well, which I'm gonna try and find it if I can. I think it was banned here, but Mammoth Fossil is another one. That one can be very useful too. Do keep in mind though that this particular one, the Orca Fossil, is a channeled ability, so you have to cast it last, otherwise it will block your other relics from casting on the selected hero. And it costs a lot of mana, so at this stage typically, especially if you start stacking them on one hero, you're gonna need at least an assassin to have the mana available to be able to cast all of it, right? At this point, we're just leveling everything that we find. And, I mean, life is good. You know, we've got shop level 4. I'm pretty happy to stay here. At some point, maybe I want to go shop level 5 to grab that extra slot. But I really do value these rerolls at this stage because, well, we sacrificed a bunch of hit points early, having no relics at all. And now we really need to start using our money to reroll, get those levels, get all the relics that we need before we start thinking again about investing a bit more into the leader and the final shop upgrade. One final thing here, Statue of David, pretty nice. This, well, creates a statue that starts throwing a whole bunch of rocks. It is also a channeled ability, so keep in mind, again, you want that to be at the very end of your relics. And what you're aiming for on this thing in particular is the death rattle. When the caster dies, spawns a statue that starts throwing 6 blocks. As I mentioned earlier, this witch, we do want her to die. We kind of expect her to. So having death rattle based effects is very, very nice. Tank here doing its very best, but looks like this Abraham Lincoln is a little bit stronger than us, and we will take a bit more damage, but thankfully we have the hit points to spare. We are going to dip down to below 100, and if you look at the left side of the board, we are actually at the very bottom, but don't think it fully, you know, showcases the reality of the situation here. I do believe that we are getting very strong, and we are starting to find the relics that we want. I managed to get that Persian Cat to level 3. I like going for the middle upgrade here, which gives affected units minus 40% relic power for 8 seconds. And generally speaking, I just love stacking these type of debuffs to enemies and buffs to allies, because a lot of those circular AoE effects actually have those type of things. Like here, for instance, the Orca Fossil, if you get that, enemies in Whirlpool lose 4 magic armor per pulse, but you can also gain 30 physical armor while channeling, and all of that combined, it just makes for, you know, a very, very nice combination when all of your units are this tightly packed, and, you know, a lot of them will benefit from these type of AoE effects. Doing great, everything gets sent into the back line. Newton goes crazy. Our tank doesn't even really seem to be taking damage right now, but this Carl is not going to enjoy the result of the fight, as only the tank survives. It is doing its very best. Level 9 Napoleon's Boots and the Hammurabi's Crown doing a lot of work too. I didn't quite manage to get any anti-heal here, which is available on Aztec Sunstone. I'm not convinced yet if that is something that you want. Because the Relic Lifesteal is lovely, especially with things like the Tesla Radio, like the Viking Runestone. You know, getting lifesteal off of, you know, the reflection damage and just the AoE damage from those items is great, but not having anti-heal can make some of the fights a little bit tricky if opponents have really beefy tanks. At this point, again, a lot of relics are being offered that I'm somewhat interested in. And there is an argument to be made here that some of these don't need to be picked up. For instance, Titanic, you know, you can probably leave it at level 3 and just skip the other ones when they get offered, if that, you know, allows you to seek for the things that actually matter. Because if you can get Titanic to level 9, sure, it's a nice upgrade, but the really important bits of the comp here are kind of over here, right? Getting that Tesla Radio, getting it up to levels, dog tags, guillotine, that type of thing, Viking Runestone. Those are the ones you actually want to level as much as possible. And you can see me skip the Titanic here and actually go for the Aztec Sunstone instead. So we do manage to get this to level 6. I end up going for the damage delay super, so we don't have that incoming or -% on the incoming healing for enemies. And I'm just hoping that I can burst them down quickly enough, especially as I will probably try and level up my leader relatively soon. Guillotine now goes to level 6. So the first super I picked up gives temporary maximum health and also heals for the damage that was dealt. Really, really powerful, especially on the tanks. And now I'm going to go for Reaper's Remnants as well, which leaves a pool of blood, which deals 5% of the executed target's max HP per second. Another AoE effect. And you can kind of start, you know, seeing what this build is all about. It's just AoE into the backline, and yeah, that's pretty much what the build is about. Don't need to go too crazy here with the positioning. You could move this whole bundle a bit more to the left, a bit more to the right to try and target something very specific if you see that you're struggling to get through a certain enemy because they have like one big carry that really is doing most of the heavy lifting. But other than that, you know, this middle positioning works just fine. Another item that shows up here that I haven't picked up earlier, but that is really good to get, is the Holy Grail, as it does give 20% relic lifesteal with the middle super, and it also can give 40% relic power to allies in an AoE buff effect with Consecration, that third super. So I do like having that in the build as well, and I'm going to make sure that it goes onto my assassin here, buffing this middle guy, and then of course going for the big circular relic effect afterwards. And at this stage, you know, life is pretty simple, pretty easy. We don't have to sweat too much. We're just going to keep rolling, try to hit those juicies. The build is pretty much online, and I don't need to find much more. You can also see that I have again sold some of the relics. So we had a statue of David here for a moment, but you know, that level 1 relic is not going to make a massive difference, and I really do value the rerolls, being able to get, you know, higher levels on our core relics more than trying to fill slots here with level 1 relics that realistically aren't going to contribute a whole bunch. Managed to get the Holy Grail to level 3, great. Not sure here what to go for first. I decide to go for the middle buff with the relic lifesteal. We managed to find Aztec Sunstone, level 9, making sure that the radius and the damage are doubled on its AoE effect. That's definitely going to make a big difference. Going to trigger Newton even more. Tesla Radio now also at level 6, which will grant 2 magic armor for 6 seconds for each enemy hit. And yeah, I mean, this guy is going to start getting really, really hard to kill. Divine Diadem, by the way, with a super, giving a whole bunch of extra lifesteal. And yeah, I mean, this build, it goes hard. If it's in the pool, I really love to play this as long as, well, some of the core items aren't banned for it. It does work a lot better with Viking Runestone than it does with something like Devil's Bible. The reflection damage on this is just, yeah, it adds to the whole Newton thing, which is something that Devil's Bible doesn't really grant. But, you know, you can try it with Devil's Bible as well. And I was talking earlier about really beefy tanks with no lifesteal. This guy in particular seems to be a little bit of a problem, as we do get stuck on him for a while. But thankfully, the Newton power, as well as our tank here, doing a good job. And I mean, you can have a look at the other like hit point maxed tank, but it's contributing as well. That Celtic Axe doing a lot of work with a lot of damage. Even pure damage there being dealt. And in the meantime, Guillotine almost up to level 9. And level 9 on the Guillotine, that's how you get the really, really healthy tanks. Kills reset the cooldown. And what this means is that, well, with a temporary max health gain, you basically keep resetting it, and you can get, you know, tanks with 10, 20 hit points if you're lucky enough to well, to kill all of the enemies. Here we have to face a ghost from Marks, and I mean, immediately the Isaac Newton hero power going crazy, deleting all of the carries, leaving only this tank which again seems to be very hard to kill. I did upgrade my Newton's ability to level 4, so we have the anvils now as a potential effect as well. Eventually the fire kicks in and all of the units start taking fatigue damage, and thankfully I do manage to win that. We get the guillotine at level 9, and now I start thinking, how important is this divine diadem really? I mean, yes, it gives lifesteal and also, you know, allows all of these relic effects to crit, which will likely add to a lot of damage. However, that kill reset cooldown and the temporary max health sounds like it could give so much, you know, survivability to this carry tank that I might want to swap those now that I managed to get this. And I think that eventually I do end up going for that. Maybe even this turn. Not quite sure about that. Looks like I do. Last second, I decide to swap it. And now we can have a look at how this will end up as the guillotine will keep resetting. If you take a look at the tank here, it just went from 2k to 4k to 6k hit points. There again, 7,000 damage, or 7,000 hit points now, and one enemy still alive. That should also get executed. It will, and we have reached 10k temporary max hit points on our tank. Of course, they do reset in between rounds, otherwise it would be a little bit too crazy, but that is not easy to kill, especially when this whole build goes into your backline, likely ends up killing, you know, your carry. I don't know how you're going to get rid of something with 10k hit points, if not more. One of the relics there that was offered also can be good. I'm trying to find it. I think it's a caster relic. This one, the claw machine, because this spawns in and also doesn't care if the caster is dead or not. So that can be a nice addition to this caster as well. On the genie, I like picking the Death Rattle super first. The genie becomes enraged upon the caster's death, gaining 250 attack speed. That works really well because, well, as you can see, this caster basically does not join the Titanic on its journey, and it often ends up dying. As I say that, it managed to get launched into the backline again, and seems like it will maybe survive. Oh no, there it does go, and now we can see the enraged genie going to work. Again, my tank almost 10,000 hit points there after all of the guillotine triggers. And we also get Celtic Axe to level 6 now. I decided to go for the barrier to allies the caster jumps over, because this doesn't trigger right away. The boat actually goes first, and then the Celtic Axe will trigger. And I was kind of hoping that it would jump over a bunch of my allies, giving them even more buffs, more resilience. And yeah, Divine Diadem at this point. Not a bad combination either with Celtic Axe. I do really like this combination as well, especially with things like dog tags. But yeah, having the crit chance on the Celtic Axe, and especially with this middle super, first instance of relic damage is guaranteed to crit. That can be very, very good. Now, I think maybe here... Now, it should be fine. I was going to say maybe the Viking Vanguard takes it, but the Celtic Axe should trigger first. And, I mean, yeah, critting with that thing is going to hurt on whoever is on the receiving end of it. There it goes. If you have a look at the damage distribution here on our end, yeah, the Celtic Axe there on the first cast, dealing well over 3,000 damage. Of course, our other tank is taking the crown with all of the high-level relics that it has, and Newton is contributing nicely, but just seems like no one has a chance against our build right now. You do have some Orca Fossil here that gets picked up as well. And, I mean, I'm not really looking to necessarily, like, prioritize any level 9s right now. We do have a level 7 on the Divine Diadem, which could be okay. Tesla Radio, level 7 in the shop. Could be nice, but I feel like at this stage, you know, with the juicies I got, my opponents just don't really have a chance anymore. And yeah, this, I don't know exactly how you want to deal with this, but you probably need something like Break or Silence to be able to stop all of this from working. We can have a quick look at what the other builds are. We have a Lincoln with quite a few juices in the shop. Looks like a Boots build here with the move speed, although no drums from what I can see. So no movement speed and attack boost, which tends to make a big difference for that. And then we have a Cleo as well. But yeah, all of the AoE effects is not exactly something the snakes love to deal with. This person using the toilets instead of the Tesla coils, which I think is actually the better build. Spawning those toilets can be very nice, and the stun as well is very good, especially when you double it up. Again, this tank seems to be too hard to kill, but, you know, an 12k hit point tank is definitely going to outlive anything when that fatigue sets in, so the anti-heal not really needed. Getting close to level 6 on the Viking Runestone. At this point, a lot of people have died, so lots of Viking Runestones have gone back into the pool. Early on, they tend to be very contested, but later on, you might be able to get some more. And yeah, I decided to see if I can swap my assassin to a tank there. But yeah, the Holy Grail plus the Persian Cat and the Orca Fossil just seem to be a little bit too much still to be able to cast everything. So this will have to stay into an assassin. We're not going to have the triple tank into the back line. And here we have to face Abraham Lincoln and see how we can do. That boot build does take down my caster, but I mean, after that, it does not seem like my tank really cares. It just keeps stacking. We deal maximum damage there. From 39 hit points, they go down to 4. And yeah, we can even afford a couple losses here. We can take 2 max losses and still be alive, still be able to roll, get those upgrades. Tesla Radio now at level 8, getting close to the Juicy. Level 7 on the Titanic as well. And I'm not going to bother with this oil lamp. It is a fun one to get to Juicy, as you will spawn a second genie. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of trying to get Tesla Radio, Celtic Axe, Viking Vanguard, Divine Diadem, all of the level 7s basically up to level 9. If I can for a final power spike, but that's going to be all. I think Cleo here either died or gave up, not exactly sure. So it's going to be a 1v1 versus me and Lincoln. And, well, if it goes anything like last fight, I think we'd like our odds in this one. I am going to move everything a little bit back, as I saw that my opponent was moving around. I don't know if it matters much, but, yeah. This way, the boat kind of arrives in the middle here, spawns next to that caster, which did have, you know, the highest relic levels overall, and it doesn't really seem like it matters much. Our tanks are just way too hard to kill, and that's how we get a win on round number 25 with this build. Very fun one. I love these type of boat-based builds. So again, shout out to Zeph for showing it, and I think Brian also has kind of, you know, gotten me hooked on this type of build. Love sending my heroes into the enemy backline, and especially with that Tesla Radio combo and Isaac. It does wonders. This also works with Vlad if you want to try that out, and basically the targets will be the same. It will be your Tesla Radio tank. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and down in the comments below what you thought about it and whether or not you've been experimenting with this, or if you've tried it out and how you like it. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.